Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging hour discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Cucchiara, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate.
Listen to us, check in. We're with you Monday through Friday from 3 to 4. And a little bonus time for you on Wednesdays and Fridays. We come to you from 2 to 4. You could listen to us on your radio at KDOW 1220 AM. And you could also listen to us live online at kdow.biz. And we're excited to announce that we just launched our podcasting program. And you will be able to now download podcasts and get them on iTunes, Android, and all those wonderful, wonderful resources here shortly. Keep your ears open for that. It's on. It'll be posted on all the social media events as well, or sites. Podcasting every single day. Really excited about that. We're a live show. We love your calls. If you have any questions for me or my guest, the number is always the same: 1-800-516-1220. 1-800-516-1220. I get a lot of requests for text, so we have a text line here if you'd like to text during the show. 408-838-9060 is the text line if you'd like to text anytime during the show. Let me invite my guest in, a fellow radio co-host here, Mr. Stephen F. Lovell. He hosts a show, The Good Life Made Better, on Saturdays from 9 to 10 and also on 4 to 5 p.m. on Saturday. Stephen, welcome in.
Thank you, Joe. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you again. This is great. Stephen's going to be in the studio for the entire hour, and we're going to have wonderful topics here, financial planning, really a lot of different topics around that. So if you're wondering, or if you have any questions about financial planning, maybe investing, maybe time-wise, maybe you're getting ready to retire, maybe you're not sure about whether you should pay off a mortgage or not, maybe all kinds of things, right? Stephen's the expert here. So these, we're going to go through a series of questions. Steve and I are going to have a great conversation about this topic. But if there's anything on your mind about, financial advising, financial services, investing, this crazy market that we're in today, anything, give us a call, check in, or text, and Stephen would be happy to answer your questions. Let's get started, Stephen. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about your background and then what you're doing now?
Do we get time for the long answer, Joe?
We do.
Well, good deal.
Give us the full scoop because we want to hear all about Stephen Lovell.
I grew up in San Francisco. My dad was a real estate broker, and he was a gregarious man, and he spoke 8 languages.
Wow.
So Dad was quite a mixer, you know. And so I was the oldest boy, and starting around the age of 3, Dad would take me with him in the car in the evenings, and we would go to people's houses all over the city. And they were often Europeans. I mean, they'd be Spanish, Portuguese, French, never German. My dad's family didn't do too well in the war. And so we would knock on the door. They'd open the door, and it was usually the wife. And they always seemed so big back then, Joe, you know. And so they'd say hello to my dad, and his name was Leslie, and they called him Les. And then these women would kind of scoop me up in their arms, and they'd hug me, kiss me, and then put me down and feed me. And Dad would always say, well, these are my clients, son. I thought, well, clients? Food? Hugging? It's kind of a good deal. So I grew up with this fantasy about clients, you know, this word. And later in life, when I was changing my careers, I thought about what Dad did and how much Dad enjoyed what he did. And I thought, well, maybe I should try doing what he did. But, Joe, I was desperately poor at selling insurance. I couldn't do it because I was very uncomfortable with the idea of pushing something across the table to someone.
Okay.
It was only when I reconceived what I was doing and saw that any kind of product, even a house is a bundle of amenities. You don't buy something sitting on a piece of land. What you buy is the ability to have a pool there, to raise your kids there, to pay your bills there, you know, to talk to your husband. Okay. So once I realized that insurance was a product that served an end, then I became pretty good at it.
Wow, very good. And you are very successful at it for sure. So for the person, let's just start it from layman's terms, which I love too. And what I love about radio is we try to do a better job at, you know, telling stories and explaining. For the person out there listening, what is a financial advisor? What does a financial advisor do?
I believe most people think I do what I would call investment advice.
Okay.
That I look at the parameters affecting mutual fund performance or stock performance.
Okay.
And then I assess the suitability or the strength of that company. No one who does what I do does that. We meet with people the same way you do, Joe.
Okay.
We talk about what they want from their portfolio, what they want their money to do, and then we're trying to design a plan, trying to design an investment portfolio to satisfy those needs.
I see.
There are people who actually do investment analysis. For the last 2 years, and I will do this again this August coming up, I went to New York and spent a day with J.P. Morgan in their building on Park Avenue. And I went into their enormous room, their catacombs, where they have nothing but young men and women in front of computers doing analysis. And they are people who don't communicate with the public. They don't have clients.
Okay.
They communicate with their boss. Their boss is often a mutual fund manager, and they're providing information to that manager to help him or her or the team make decisions about what to buy, what to sell, and how much to allocate to each one of those positions.
Oh, okay.
I don't do that. I could, but I don't. I work with people to help them get what they want.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Great explanation. So you take on a client, kind of how does the routine work, Steve? I mean, do they come to you? Do they sit down for a consultation? How does that work if someone called you today or called the show today and said, Stephen, I like what I hear. What's the first step? And then kind of take us through that process.
Well, right now you could say sourcing people for a lot of different methods.
Okay.
One being radio.
Okay.
And for all of you listening right now, don't make Joe lonely. Don't make Stephen lonely. Give us a call if you want. But yeah, Joe, I meet people through conversing with them, indirectly on the radio. And so they make a call to the office. We set up a meeting time. There's no obligation. There is no cost. It's exploratory. They're trying to see if I know what I'm doing.
Got it.
They're also trying to see if I'm a trustworthy guy. And I think probably they're looking to see whether they enjoy conversing with me, whether I'm a nice guy.
Yeah.
Because people tend to work with people they like.
That's true.
And so then we sit down for maybe an hour and a half, and they are free to bring up whatever they want about their own situation, financial, health, family, situational, jobs, and so on. And I ask them some questions to assess where they are in their planning, how far they are away from having to use money that's not income from a job. And we determine together whether we would like to set a second meeting. Presumably when they say, I'd like to meet again in, another week, same time, they have already made up their mind to work with me. So on Wednesday of this last week, I had a meeting with a new person, someone I'd met 8 years before, and she had never thrown away my card. I don't know how she found me, but she did. I remembered who she was. I even remembered what she had invested in, and it was a very poor choice, by the way. She had put all of her money, even though she was already in her 60s, Joe, into emerging markets. So this is a little like putting all of your money in vacant land in, near New Orleans or something. But anyway, she came back and we started from fresh. We sat down and she told me about her situation and she thought it was a good idea we start working together. So
very good. If you're just tuning in, this is Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live. We're with you 5 days a week. Today we have in studio Mr. Stephen Lovell. He has his own radio show as well from 9 to 10 every Saturday, and then it replays, I should say, from 4 to 5. Be sure to tune in, KDLW 1220 AM. His show is The Good Life Made Better. Stephen is a financial advisor. We're talking about investments. We're going to take us through this process. A lot of questions that I have for Stephen, but if you're out there and you're wondering about, investing, maybe advice, you're not sure if you're working with someone, if it's the right person, maybe you're just trying to find the right person, or maybe you have an elderly family member that needs some help, or any number of different things. It's a great resource. That's what we're here for. Our focus, as you know, is education and information. There's 2 ways you could reach us. Give us a call, 1-800-516-1220, or you could always text during the show, 408-838-9060. Stephen, a couple minutes left in this segment. Since 1990 now, you've had a couple different business changes. What is the reason for that? And kind of take us through that process and maybe how that evolved over the last 20 years.
Certainly. I think when you're trying to pick your entity and then also the name of your business, these are important things. Initially, because my grandfather, who lived in Ontario, Canada, and was very successful. His company became a national company, It's in all of those books about industrial development in Canada. It was a clothing business.
Okay.
And I grew up in the shadow of that business. The very first job I had when I was 17, I was the nephew of the guys running the company. That was my two uncles after my grandfather passed. Well, my mother named me for my grandfather, Joe. And so when I decided to create my financial planning business, partly because of his success, I wanted to honor him. So initially I chose the family name, my mother's name, Forsyth, and called my business Forsyth Heritage.
Oh, okay.
Heritage, again, to honor my grandfather. And then later I thought, well, no one knows who Forsyth is. No one can spell it. And they always want to add an E to it. And they always confuse it with the John Galsworthy novel, The Forsyth Saga. So I went to my own name, Lovell. And then I thought, well, because I'm very interested in helping people preserve what they have today for their heirs, their wife, their husband, their children, their grandchildren, I will use the word legacy. I have two business coaches, Joe, and both of them shun that word legacy. I don't know why.
Really? Okay.
I think it's a good word.
Yeah.
But they say, Stephen, it's confusing. We want people to know that you're in the business of helping them manage their money. Please just go kind of bland here. Become Lovell Wealth Management.
Yeah.
So in about 3 weeks, I will be Lovell Wealth Management.
There you go. Well, business is about evolving, isn't it? And you have to be open-minded. And things change, things happen. I mean, back when I started my show almost 4 years ago was Real Estate 360, and things happened with the company I was with at the time, and now this is independently mine, and I renamed it. And it's kind of funny because now I like this name better than ever. And as I was, having to give up Real Estate 360, that kind of was upsetting, but it's interesting how things evolve, isn't it?
My coaches would tell you, Joe, Real Estate 360 is confusing.
Yeah. No, I would agree. And I like the name, but, here we are. And as most people, it's funny you say that because I would have several people say before, what's Real Estate 360? Because there's nothing about radio, but this is pretty simple now, right? Real Estate Radio Live. So what is it that you don't understand?
I know what you do for a living, Joe. Yeah.
All right, we're going to take...
And I know you think globally with the 360.
We do, yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We come back much more with Stephen F. Lovell. If you have any questions, give us a call, 1-800-516-1220, or use the text line 408-838-9060. This is Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live. We'll be back with you in just a couple minutes. Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live. We're sitting alongside my guest here in studio for the entire hour, friend of the show, Stephen F. Lovell. He has his own show on KDOW 1220. The Good Life Made Better is the name of Stephen's show, and it runs on every Saturday morning from 9 to 10, and then they do a replay from 4 to 5 p.m. on Saturdays. Be sure to tune in if you can catch that. A lot of good information. Stephen's been kind enough to stop by today and spend some of his valuable time with us. We're talking about financial planning and much, much more. If you have any questions for Stephen, you could give us a call, 1-800-516-1220, or you could text the text line at 408-838-9060. Stephen, what areas, you covered this a little bit, but what areas of financial planning do you cover with your clients? I mean, I know that there's so many different aspects of planners, right? There's fee-based, and then what's the other one?
Well, they say broadly there's fee-based and commission-based.
Okay, fee-based and commission-based.
And one is supposed to wear a white hat, Joe, and the other a black hat. And sticking with the color theme, that is a red herring.
Is that right?
Yeah. How an advisor takes his or her comp is not really relevant to the issue of whether someone is giving you suitable advice.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And by the way, the regulatory bodies don't fully agree with me. There's a great dispute happening in our country right now, and it is being spearheaded by the Department of Labor. And this very issue about what level of care, standard of care, should be applied when a financial advisor takes on a client is being debated. There's roughly two current standards of care. There's a brokered standard of care, and the name for this is suitability. And what that entails is that when you sit in front of a broker, a registered representative, a stockbroker, and I am one of those, that person must make recommendations to you that follow the parameters within a rule called Rule 2111.
Okay.
I believe, and I'm not the only one, that is a lower than acceptable standard. If you go back to a broker and claim that they misrepresented something, and as long as you sign your disclosures and they've made suitable recommendations, and that's a very broad category, there isn't a whole lot of comeback, Joe. But there's another standard, that of a fiduciary, just like with an attorney, a physician, with a CPA. I became an accredited investment fiduciary. I do operate at that level. And one of the most notable events of my own career, I was for 3 years on a Washington, D.C. committee from 2003 through 5. And there was a big debate back then. The SEC approved an exception to a rule, and it was known as the Merrill Rule or Merrill Exception because of Merrill Lynch. And Merrill Lynch was putting a lot of money into it. And is it okay to talk about regulation for a moment?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is not okay. Thank you. I occasionally bore people with regulation, but regulation is what protects people. It's the same in mortgage business.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the big wirehouses like Merrill and Morgan Stanley and Dean Witter and all those companies back then wanted their brokers to be able to sit in front of a client and do brokerage business with that guy and gal, and then say, hey, by the way, if someone said, well, what do you think? Should I pay off my mortgage? The broker at that moment, Joe, was supposed to say something like, John and Mary, I'm taking off my broker's hat. I'm putting on my financial advisor hat. But I'm only doing this for the moment, and it's only incidental to the main business, which is brokerage business. And by the way, here's your disclosure. Sign, please, and press hard. I thought that was a very, delusional to think someone would know what was going on. So Merrill said, well, we don't want them to be treated as financial advisors. So I thought, as member of this committee, and so did my other fellow committee members, we wanted to put all of our money and all of our time into suing the SEC. We didn't want the investment public to be deceived that way. We won the case at a jurisdictional level, and the SEC had time to appeal it. They didn't appeal, so you could say we won.
Right.
We won.
Okay.
That was a big deal.
Very good. All right. We're going to take a break here, and we're going to come back and much, much more. A lot of good stuff here. We're covering with Stephen F. Lovell. He is with us in studio, financial advisor. Do you have any questions about investments, the market? Market's been a little bit shaky lately. Do you have any questions about that? Stephen's here to answer those questions and anything else. 1-800-516-1220. Text line 408-838-9060. Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live. We'll be back with you in just a couple of minutes. Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live. I'm been visited in studio for the entire hour by Mr. Stephen Lovell. He is also a radio host with KDOW and broadcasts on Saturday mornings from 9 to 10. And also replays from 4 to 5. And his show is called The Good Life Made Better. Great name, Stephen. Like that name. Speaking of naming, we were talking about that. It's a good name.
We were. So
love
is Cucchiara, Joe.
I love it. Any questions for Stephen? Financial planning, market, investing, anything in that realm? We are having that discussion. 1-800-516-1220, or you could text 408-838-9060. Out of all the services, two things. What is the most important, do you believe? And then what is kind of the profile of your client? Or what do you look for?
Okay, obviously this is a question I'm asked wherever I go.
Yeah.
And I've always answered the question about, who's my ideal client or typical client in the same way. I think, who am I working with? And I think about the age range and the assets and whether they have kids and not. And I was in Boston about 3 to 4 weeks ago. And I was being interviewed for TV by a guy who does Fox. And he said this to me, Joe. He said, Stephen, so is it ever too young to begin doing financial planning? And, rather than just doing a spontaneous response, I thought about it, although they don't like any dead time on TV, But I thought about it very quickly, Joe.
Right.
And what I realized was that, in a way, I don't pick my clients. My clients pick me because, frankly, they come to me just like when they put that for sale, by owner on the lawn, you may go and see them because they're selling.
Yeah.
Well, clients tend to come to me when they are ready to think seriously about their money. And obviously that correlates well with their age and with life events such as new child being born, new grandchild, wanting to change where they live, leaving work, someone dying. All of these things propel people to think more clearly about their money. But more of those things tend to pile up around retirement, and that's when people call me. So they pick me. But that client typically is a married couple, a professional person. They have assets, often the house, and maybe an IRA and a big retirement plan from all the years of work. And they want help with mainly retirement planning. They want to make sure that they're going to be able to go in that very lengthy time period in life with no more income infusions and be able to pay their way. Got it.
Very good. Very, very good. So what about results? I know this is just widespread. People are always talking, it's kind of funny. People are comparing interest rates, and they also compare, what did your financial, well, I got a 12% return, a 15, a 20, blah, 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 blah. How do you measure results? Is that basically the work that's done? Is that there's some luck involved, hard work involved? Does it depend on the client? If you can maybe give me kind of an overview of that. What are your thoughts?
When I have a client and they have an array of assets with me, I can run reports to show them how they've done vis-a-vis some inception period or some kind of period like a quarter or a year or 3 years. But I believe no one has ever walked into my office unless they were about 28 and said, hey, Mr. Lovell, I can do 10.5% on my own. Can you beat that? Or, I want to have a certain amount of money in my bank account. No one ever talks that way, Joe. What they do is they like their life.
Yeah.
They feel free to do things like buy vacations, help the kids with money, and they want to continue that life. So implicitly when they come to me, really what they're saying is, when I leave Oracle, when I stop selling real estate, how can I keep living the way I do? Yeah. So we measure success by making sure they can sustain that lifestyle. Right. And so their assets must be directed to that.
Well said. All right, we're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to continue with Stephen Lovell. We have a couple more segments. If you have any questions, 1-800-516-1220, and has his own radio show as well on KDOW. Saturdays from 9 to 10 every Saturday morning, and then it replays from 4 to 5 on Saturdays. The show is called The Good Life Made Better, and Stephen works really hard and has a great reputation for helping people do just that. We're talking about financial planning, client profiles, a little bit of everything here with Stephen as an expert. I want to ask you a little bit, Stephen, about your opinion. I love to get your opinion on the market recently. There's there's a lot of people that would say the last couple of years, it's built on stilts, it's built on weak ground, it's built on, low interest rates. It shouldn't have been so low for so long. All these different thoughts, philosophies, comments. Then there's a little bit of a pullback here recently, and it's a little shaky. What do you think's going on? Is there anything that you could point your finger at, or is there a number of things? What's your opinion?
When you say, Joe, point my finger at, I would like to point my finger at all the people that get on TV. I'm going to leave radio out, okay?
Okay.
And prognosticate about the market.
Okay.
I have never, ever met anyone who gets it right, and I am backed by a lot of academics.
Yeah.
I'm backed by Warren Buffett. No one knows. And despite all of the effort, the intellectual energy, the money, the time invested in trying to in some way look at macroeconomic or microeconomic effects in our economy or worldwide, and then derive some kind of conclusions that are repeatable about market performance, it can't be done. It can't be done.
Yeah.
So no one who makes a call gets it right. The only guy who gets it right is the guy who, and this is a very well-known thing, he writes 1,000 letters to 1,000 people, and he tells them, he picks 10 investments, he tells each one of them, what's going to do the best. 100 of those 1,000 people are going to get it right?
Yeah.
Then he writes a second letter and picks 10 investments and picks again. He divides them up into groups of 10. Second letter, 10 people again. He's right twice in a row. You get the point.
Yeah.
Those are the only people who get it right. The people essentially who scheme to deceive.
Right.
So when you look at the economy as a whole, and I don't mean just in the U.S., but worldwide, the economy looks stable. The fact that the market tends to have these gyrations despite what the economy does, it's always been that way, Joe. The market has never gone lockstep with what's going on with our GDP, and we will never expect it to. when you look at what are called the leading economic indicators and the ones that just move with it and the ones that are, the passé ones, they're all in some way, you must use discrimination. They are not in any way real, strong indicators. Correlations are there, but they're often, as they say, spurious or accidental. Yes.
So then I'm guessing the same thought you have about these market timers, so to speak, right? The people that are charging people for different fees and news reports, or what do you call them, newsletters, and subscribe once a quarter, and we'll show you how to time the market. I mean, so that's along the same lines. It's darn near impossible.
Well, I would say that's even worse. Think of it this way: if you were a fisherman and you found the fishing hole with the fish, how many people would you tell? So if this newsletter has a secret, why would they tell anybody for $150 a year?
Yeah.
That makes no sense. The only way you're really going to make money in the market, Joe, if you have this kind of information, whether it's illegal, meaning that it is, information, insider information, is you must keep it secret. Because you know something others don't know. You must buy before them and then sell before they sell.
Yeah.
So you can't divulge the information.
Yeah, very good. Well said, well said. So what if someone's interested in coming, we talked a little bit, Stephen, about the process, maybe the profile of your client. If someone's interested, if you could take us through the process in terms of how I guess my question is, do you give a free consultation first? Do you sit down with someone? Do you charge? Do you review? And then how is that follow-up? How would it be a follow-up? How does that work in your business?
That initial consultation, Joe, that is, of course, exploratory.
Okay.
The investor wants to know that the advisor, has a nice office, is trustworthy and legitimate. So they're trying to find out whether I'm expert and whether I'm trustworthy. And I believe also they're trying to determine whether they like me, whether they can talk about significant things. There's been a study showing that you could say the jobs or functions performed by a doctor match that of a financial advisor in every respect, except the doctor writes meds, prescriptions for meds. We don't do that, other than red wine, So we too are hearing things about people who are thinking about divorcing because the husband comes without the wife, or the reverse. We get those phone calls. We hear. I've had 2 meetings recently with people who one referred me to the other, and it's only when I had that second meeting I realized the secret connection between them, and had to do with an addiction. And the one boyfriend does not know about the addiction, but I now know. So frequently you're discussing very private matters, and I've worked with some celebrities. They don't want anything known.
Yeah.
I've worked with 4 generations in families, the great to the grandparent to the parent to the kids, and you have to keep all of that information insulated from the other people. So you need to be able to tell them in that initial meeting that everything is confidential, nothing will be divulged.
Got it.
You need to show that you know your stuff and that you're trustworthy, and the client wants to see that. And then I want to see, Joe, at this stage of my career after 26 years, I want to see that I will enjoy working with that person, because you spend a lot of your time and you give your devotion to this client, and I want to like my clients the way they like me.
Yeah, well said again. We're going to take a break here in about a minute, but just quickly, charitable work and pro bono campaigns. What's your position on that? And I know you spend a little time doing that as well, don't you?
I did. I grew up. I used to walk with my mother for the March of Dimes, so it's kind of built into my bones.
Okay.
And I have worked with the American Cancer Society. My dad had cancer, so I've done a few things like that. But I think probably the most fun things, when Hurricane Katrina happened, the Wall Street Journal interviewed me and he said, what would you tell someone to grab when they're running from the floodwaters? And I said, well, everything's virtual. All they need is their medicines, their cash, and any printed photos. Yeah. And of course, my sister said, what about their dogs? So, Joe, your meds, your photos, your cash, and your little
dogs.
pooch.
Okay.
Grab them. So then the Wall Street Journal was so pleased with my emergency checklist, they asked if it could be put on their website.
Oh, really?
For the Hurricane Katrina
very
victims.
good.
So that was a good one.
Very good. It's always good to give back. We're going to take our last break. When we come back, we're going to finish up with Stephen Lovell. If you have any questions, one last chance, 516-1220, text line 408. With Real Estate Radio Live, we're been joined in studio for the entire hour by our friend Stephen Lovell. He is also a radio host with KDOW. His show is The Good Life, Made Better, and we're winding down the show, so we want to get things moving here. It looks like we have a caller on the line, Andrea from Livermore, I believe. Andrea, are you there?
Yes.
How are you today?
Fine, thank you. My question is, if I have at least $2,000, can I invest?
Stephen?
Joe, you're going to give that one to me?
I am.
I'd be glad to take it.
You are the expert.
Andrea, you can, but your choices are very limited. Typically, any kind of an investment company wants your money, but because they have any kind of, call them startup costs or transaction costs to take you on as a client, they often have a minimum. Now, in what's called a qualified account, like an IRA, it's often a little less, maybe $1,000. But if you go to a company, to a brokerage company, and you give them $2,000, you can probably buy a mutual fund. If you go directly to the mutual fund company, they probably have about the same, $1,000 or $2,000 is a minimum. Most other kinds of investments you can't buy with that amount of money, with the exception of buying stocks directly. So those are your two choices. Mutual funds probably in a brokerage account, and you can buy them directly from the mutual fund company, or buying stock directly.
Okay, so do you go to the bank for that, or where do you go?
No, banks are not really investment companies. You could call a mutual fund company up directly and invest through them. It could be a Fidelity, a Vanguard, and American funds. Banks, if you are banking somewhere and you ask the person who sits at the desk, typically they have someone there who's licensed, they probably can tell you too. And they may just put your money in a money market fund if you ask them what you could invest it in. With a money market fund, Andrea, you don't earn at this point any money, maybe 0.2%, 0.1% on your money, which means on $2,000 you might earn $2.
Okay, so I need to call a mutual fund company.
Yes, see what they say. But again, make sure you buy something that's suitable to you. I take it from your voice tones, you're a young woman, and
yes.
You may want to buy something, that is designed for growth, because you got a long time ahead of you before you're going to use this money.
So would that be, Stephen, would that be like a Fidelity or Charles Schwab or something? What would be something?
Schwab would be the broker,
okay.
Joe. Fidelity would be the mutual fund company.
All right.
And Fidelity has over 100 different mutual fund types.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Well, thank you so
Andrea.
much. Okay,
you're welcome.
bye-bye.
Thanks for listening, and thanks for calling. Appreciate it. All right. Unfortunately, we're going to have to go, but before we do that, Stephen, if you could give the listeners the website, phone number, email, how to contact you.
Phone 800-841-4225. 800-841-4225. And the email address is Stephen, spelled with a PH, .Lovell, like the astronaut, Stephen.Lovell at 𝗥𝗱𝗩𝗚legacy.com, soon to be management show. So,
there we go.
And thank you for listening. And for those of you who are listening, it's a lot of fun to be here with Joe in the studio,
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
Stephen, thanks for the time. We really appreciate it. Great show. All right, we're going to have to duck out today. Thanks again for spending the time with us. Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live. Let's thank Stephen Lovell for being our gracious guest. And remember, check in with us Monday through Friday from 3 to 4. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Have a great afternoon.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit 𝗪radiolive.com. That's 𝗪radiolive.com. Tune in, log in, download our podcast. Discover more at 𝗪radiolive.com. 𝗪radiolive.com.